Welcome back to the Snowpointcast. Today we're going to be talking about a deck from 2009 called Flygon Lock. Flygon Lock did really well at the World Championships in 2009. It got a top 8 finish by Sebastian Crema in the Masters division, as well as a second place finish by David Cohen in the Seniors division. This list that we're going to be talking about is pretty close to the Sebastian Crema list. I would say it's like our new list. We definitely worked on it a little bit. I made a suggestion, and then we agreed that the suggestion was warranted based on how the meta has been unfolding nowadays. Yeah, let's go right into it. So starting off with 3 Trapinch. Trapinch is a super important part of the deck, probably like the most important part of the deck. 50 HP, a single retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to water. Inviting Trap for 1 colorless. Switch to defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's really good for bringing up like a Claydol to stall with a Flygon. The whole like point of this deck is to deck your opponent out. That you have other routes to victory as well, but your main goal is to deck them. So definitely a really solid stalling tactic. And then Sand Tomb is the other really good attack as well. So for 1 fighting, you do 10, and then the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's turn. This is part of a combo that I'm going to discuss when we get to Palkia, because the whole combo kind of goes around restructure and like bring your opponent up. But inviting Trap is a really important part of the strategy sometimes as well, depending on what your game unfolds like. So you also played 2 Vibrava. So Sebastian played a 1-1 split in his Worlds list, but he recommended that we just play 2 of the Energy Typhoon one. I agree with that. I think that's the better card. The other one is kind of niche, interesting. For 1 fighting, you can spread 10s everywhere on your opponent's board, so I guess there are some situations where that's good, but Energy Typhoon is like really good too, especially late game against stuff like Kingdra and stuff. So yeah, 70 HP, single retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to colorless or dragon. So Energy Typhoon is the first attack for 1 colorless. Does 20 times the amount of energy cards in your opponent's discard pile, then put those cards on top of your opponent's deck, and then they shuffle. So really good, especially if it's like late in the game and you've knocked out a lot of Pokemon with a lot of energy. And then quick attack is okay in niche situations as well. So for 2, 20, flip a coin of heads, it does 20 plus 20. I mean, okay if you're going second, I guess. But you play those for the Flygon line. So Flygon's an awesome card, really powerful. It's got 120 HP, free retreat, which is great. A resistance to lightning and a weakness to colorless or dragon still. The Pokebody is an awesome part about this card. So it's called Rainbow Float. If any basic energy card is attached to Flygon, any type of Pokemon that you have in play that is that type of energy has no retreat. So keeping everyone having free retreat is a big part of the big combo that this deck plays. It just stops you from being stalled, and it's a really important part of restructure, which we'll get to when we get to Palkia. Sandwall for 2, you do 40, and then discard a stadium card your opponent has in play. If you do, prevent all effects of attack, including damage done to Flygon during your opponent's next turn. So a really good chip damage, especially if your opponent's dropped a broken time space. Then Power Swing is another really good attack as well. So for 3, you do 60, and 10 more for each of your evolved Pokemon on your bench. So you can swing for a max 110 for 3, which is pretty solid for sure. And then you also play the Flygon level X. So this is a really important part of this combo as well. So 140 HP, free retreat still, and resistance to lightning, but the weakness to colorless is ×2 now because it's a level X. The Pokebody is Wind Erosion, so as long as Flygon is your active Pokemon, discard the top card of your opponent's deck between turns. So that is the main mill strategy that you're going to be doing. Your main goal is kind of just stall stuff up, and then Wind Erosion a deck's resources or just their entire deck away. And it works really well, especially with Memory Berry. It lets you use your Inviting Traps and your Sand Tombs, and then you can just like trap a Claydol active and do 10 damage to it 7 times, and then get something else active and then mill some more. So Extreme Attack is also really good. It's the attack on Flygon level X. So for 3, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon level X, and this attack does 150 damage to that Pokemon. So it can snipe anywhere, which is really awesome. And most level X's have 150 or less HP, so it's able to kill a majority of the X's. There's a few that it doesn't kill, but it kills most of them as well. So really solid card in this deck. I also played 2 Baltoy. So Baltoy has got 50 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to grass. Psychic Balance is the reason you play this Baltoy instead of others. So for 1 colorless, if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, you get a draw to match them. So really good if you're bricking, you can just attach and then hopefully draw some cards, draw what you need. And then spin turn, since you play Fighting Energy, you can't use this attack. For a fighting, a colorless does 20, and then switch Baltoy with one of your bench Pokemon. It's definitely a decent attack. But the reason you play this is for Claydol. Claydol's amazing, such a good card. So 80 HP, 2 retreat, and weakness to grass. Cosmic Power is the reason you play this card. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may choose up to 2 cards in your hand. Put one of them on the body. Put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you do, draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. So being able to hand refresh like that is so good, especially when you can just like play out your hand and then put 2 cards back and draw a fresh 6. You can get multiple Claydol into play. It's just one of the best cards in this format. It's such a good draw card. And it's also the reason that this Dex combo works so well because Claydol is such a prime target for Inviting Trap and Sand Wall. So definitely we're going to get into that with Palkia, and it's coming soon, but not yet. So you do play a 1/1 Nidoran line, or Nidoqueen line instead. So 60 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Single Psychic does scratch for 10, offer help for 2. 2 colorless, you search your deck for a supporter card, put it in your hand, which is like decent in a pinch. But the reason you play this for the Nidoqueen, so 120 HP, Maternal comforts the Pokebody. So anytime in between turns, remove 1 damage counter from each of your Pokemon, and you can't use more than 1 Maternal Comfort a turn. So it's really good for healing, especially when you have free retreat on Flygon, when you can just free retreat everything, switch into whatever you want, and then heal up over time. It's a really, really powerful asset, especially when Flygon gives everything free retreat and also has free retreat itself. You can also attack with Nidoqueen in this deck because you do play Psychic Energy. So for 1 Psychic, it does 40, which is decent. Mega Punch is all right. Ruthless Tail is pretty good as well. So for 1 Psychic, 2 colors, it does 50, plus 10 damage for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So 2 really niche attacks. This is a really good attacker against Machamp if you're ever up against Machamp. Definitely really good to take a hit and then heal in between turns. Not that Machamp's a threat, but the other Flygon variant, Flygon Machamp, is one that this can struggle with because it just swarms you with so many attackers, and Nidoqueen is a decent answer to that. So you also play, this is where the deck gets a little bit spicy from Sebastian's list. So Sebastian actually played a 1/1. He played 1 Bubble Coat and 1, I don't remember what it is, but I'll put a picture of it up. I'll look it up. So he played 1 Bubble Coat and 1 of whatever this card is, and we decided to cut these 2 cards just because we thought that Dusknoir is pretty warranted right now. I think if you're playing against another Stage 2 deck and you have Dusknoir and the other one doesn't, it's a pretty solid advantage for you. Being able to take out your opponent's Stage 2s and put them back in the deck just means that you have such a big board advantage on them. And so you do play the 1/1 Dusknoir line. We agreed on that play. So 60 HP. I think you should play this Duskull just because you have the donk potential. So for a single retreat, and then resistance to colorless and a weakness to dark. Counting Song is the attack that you have this for. So for free, you can put up to 3 damage counters on Duskull, and then put up to 3 damage counters on the defending Pokemon. So that's great for one matchup, really. It's super good against Gyarados. But if anything starts an Unown Q, you can just dunk that as well. But yeah, Gyarados has a 30 HP Magikarp, so you can just win that before the game even starts, which is really, really powerful. Just a solid out. You just attach to the active, retreat into the Duskull, and then take the game. But you play that for the Dusknoir. So the Dusknoir, 120 HP, 3 retreat, resistance to colorless, and a weakness to dark. So Dark Palm is the power. You get to, if your opponent has 4 more bench Pokemon, you get to choose one of them and then shuffle that card and all card, that Pokemon and all cards attached into the deck. So really, really good. Again, like if you're playing against another Stage 2 deck, you can leave them with their Claydol because honestly, you kind of like want them to have Claydol. It's your target to bring up and have in the active because it cannot really attack. And so you just Dark Palm whatever other Stage 2 that they have and then stall with their Claydol. Let them draw cards, but you're milling them while they're trying to set up the Stage 2 that you just put back. And you might even just mill parts of the Stage 2 that you put back as well as another advantage of Flygon that you can sometimes just Wind Erosion there. They're solid outs that they're looking for away. And then you can attack with this Pokemon as well. Hard Feelings is actually really good in these situations. So for 2 Psychic and a colorless, put 5 damage counters on the defending Pokemon, then count the number of prize cards your opponent has taken and put that many damage counters on the defending Pokemon. So you can put up to like 10 damage counters. That's really good if your opponent has like, I don't know, something that's like stopping actual damage, like Special Metal or, you know, something like that. There are some situations where Hard Feelings, being able to drop counters instead of actually doing damage is really good too. Yeah. So you also play 1 Unown G. So Unown G is really good for guard. I'm just going to put this Trapinch into the active and show you how G works for those that don't know. So Unown Guard works like this. Poke Power Guard, you can say I'm activating Guard, and then Unown G becomes a Pokemon tool. So you attach it to one of your Pokemon, and then as long as Guard is attached, let's say you have another Trapinch here. And actually, let's say this Trapinch is on the bench. Okay, we just got lots of Trapinches out. Flygon Mirror. Flygon's a busted deck. So if this Flygon attacks, use Inviting Trap, pretend it's got an energy on there. This Guard would prevent that effective attack. So the effective attack that it usually would get brought up, but since it has a Guard attached, and that's an effect of the attack, it doesn't happen, and essentially nothing would happen. So it's really good against other Flygon decks. It's also really good against Gengar. Shadow Room is a really powerful attack. So being able to stop a Shadow Room Gengar on your Claydols is really good as well. And there's just some niche situations where it's good. It also has an attack that's pretty decent. So for a Psychic and a Colorless, it does 50, and then if Unown G has any damage counters on it, damage is 10 instead. So a lot of stuff has 50 HP in this format. Baltoy does, Trapinch does. Most of the stage 2 basics, like Horsey or Weedle or whatever the stage 2 basic is, a lot of times it does 50 HP. So if you have nothing really to do, you can attach a call turn 1 to Unknown and just call. And then turn 2, if you're in a situation where you're like, well, I may as well take some prizes here, you can just hit Hidden Power and just knock out your opponent's active sometimes. So that attack does have some niche uses as well. So the deck also plays one Chatot. I think Chatot's really good. So it's got 60 HP, free retreat, resistance to fighting, and a weakness to lightning. Mimic is the big reason you play as Chatot. So for free, you can shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw for as many cards as your opponent has in their hand. So really good, especially in this format. Like there's some decks like Gyarados that just have massive hands, so you're just able to copy that and then set up and hit all your big resources. Just set up your board. And Chatter's got a niche too. So for 2 colorless, it does 20, and then the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. It is a mill deck, so knowing that you have a non-retreat or an attack that says your opponent can't retreat is good in niche situations. Like if you don't have another Trapinch and you're all out of resources, the Chatot can potentially be a mill or stall resource for you. So deck also plays one Uxie, just really staple. 70 HP, single retreat, no weakness to psychic. Setup is the power, so when you bench Uxie, you can draw until you have 7 cards in your hand, which is really, really good. Super solid card. It's pretty much in almost every deck in this format just because it's so good. And then Psychic Restore is pretty good as well. So for 1 colorless, you could do 20 and then put Uxie and all cards attached to the bottom of the deck. It's good for, getting Uxie back in your deck. It means you can find it with the Roseannes and draw again with it later. So kind of a cool usefulness there. And then you do play an Azelf as well. So Azelf, 70 HP, single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Time Walk is the reason that you play this Azelf. So when you bench it, you can search your prizes for a Pokemon, show it to your opponent, and then switch a card from your hand with that card and put the Pokemon in your hand. So really good if you prize like a Flygon level X or a Dusknoir or a Nidoqueen, any little pieces of the line. You have to play a thin line just because of how the deck works. Like you only play a 3-2-3-1 because the level X counts as a Flygon, so you can only play 4 Flygon, and it just makes sense to play the thin line. But because of that, if you get knocked out really quickly, like if a Beedrill deck just pops off on you or something, it's really tough to get that back. And Time Walk helps you just like find Pokemon on the prizes. Like say you need a Claydol or whatever. It's really nice to just be able to pick your prizes later in the game as well. Like knowing what you have prized and being able to pick the right prize at the right time can be really, really useful as well. Okay, so getting the Palkia line. I'm not going to talk about the attacks in this Palkia because I was talking with Sebastian and I was like, which Palkia should I play? There's one with an attack and then one that has more HP. And he's like, you never attack with it. So I was like, cool, we'll just play the one with more HP then. So it's got 100 HP, 3 retreat, and a weakness to lightning. Luminous Orb is kind of cool though. If an active Pokemon has weakness to water type, Palkia's attacks do 20 more damage. So, I mean, you do play 2 water energies, so I guess there are certain boards where you have to attach manually 4 times to Palkia. Oh, that sounds disgusting even saying it, but I guess there are situations where if you literally have nothing else to do, you can do that. But the reason you play is for the level X. So the level X Palkia is really strong. It's got 120 HP, 3 retreat, and a weakness to lightning. Restructure is the reason you play this Palkia. So essentially what Restructure says is your opponent gets to choose one of your benched Pokemon to bring up, and then you get to choose one of their benched Pokemon to bring up. So they do it first, but this is the beautiful part about this combo is because you have free retreat on all your Pokemon, or should eventually with Flygon, then there's nothing on your opponent's board or on your board that your opponent will be able to bring up. So let's say you have a Psychic Energy and a Fighting Energy and a Water attached to Flygon. That's usually what you want. And you say, okay, I'm going to restructure you. And then they choose literally anything. You have a Claydol out, you have a Nidoqueen out, you have a Dusknoir out, you have a Sprite out. Doesn't matter. They pick it, and because of your Rainbow Float with Flygon, you just get to free retreat that Pokemon into whatever Pokemon that you want. Sometimes that's a locking Trapinch. Sometimes that's a Flygon level X. Sometimes that's whatever you really want. But being able to have that power of your opponent, you just get to bring them up, and then you get to Sand Tomb. Yeah, Sand Tomb that's the reason this attack is so good, because you can just not worry about inviting trap. You get to essentially inviting trap with a restructure, and then Sand Tomb. So like they put up whatever, you bring up a Claydol and then you Sand Tomb, and even if they're playing a Flygon deck, it still locks them because it's Sand Tomb says the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. So and then you just chill with the Flygon active and you just mill them. And we'll go over Memory Berry in a second. It's a really important part of this combo as well, because it lets the Flygon use the Trapinch's attack, which is why I'm talking so much about the Trapinch. But yeah, Palkia level X is essential to the deck. Really, really strong, and also a really cool looking card. Such a cool card. Okay, so got a 1/1 Mewtwo line as well. This line is really for SP. So SP is a pretty good build. Palkia and Luxape are both like pretty solid SP builds. And you play the 1/1 Mewtwo just because you already play Psychics, and it's just such a good counter that if they're not playing a counter to it, then you auto win. And even if they are playing a counter to it, you still have outs where you can just kill the counter and then recover the Mewtwo with a Night Maintenance or something and then just win the game. So Mewtwo, it's got 90 HP, 2 retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Energy absorption for free. Search your discard for up to 2 energy cards and attach them to Mewtwo. Really solid, super solid attack. And recover for 1 Psychic, discard a Psychic Energy attached to Mewtwo, and then you remove 6 damage from Mewtwo. It's also really good. Healing is super solid because if they do try to chip damage you with something that can attack you and they don't kill you, you can just heal that. And then Cyburn, 2 Psychics and a Colorless for 60. But the reason you play that is for the Mewtwo level X. So Mewtwo level X has got 120 HP, 2 retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Psy Barrier is the body that you play this for. So Psy Barrier says prevent all effects of attack, including damage done to Mewtwo, done by all your opponent's Pokemon that isn't an evolved Pokemon. So SP decks pretty much only play non-evolved Pokemon, except for the techs for Mewtwo that they can sometimes play. So yeah, just you auto win if they're not playing the techs. And then Giga Burn is also a really good attack. So for 2 Psychics and a Colorless, you do 120, and then you discard all energy attached to Mewtwo. So if you're having Mewtwo, you should essentially just be like energy absorption into Giga Burn and energy absorption into Giga Burn, and then you can just keep attacking your opponent until you essentially end the game if they don't have an answer to your Mewtwo. Okay, so there's so many Pokemon in this deck. I'm just gonna get a little bit into the trainers in the deck because there's not as many trainers. This deck is like almost half Pokemon. There's so many Pokemon in this deck. Okay, so starting off with 4 Rare Candy. Rare Candy's pretty staple. It helps you get out your Flygons and your Nidoqueens and your Dusknoirs. It can also get you a fast Claydol. If you really need to find a Claydol, you can go Candy into Claydol. But it's mainly there to just smooth over your Stage 2 lanes. Every Stage 2 deck in this format is pretty much staple plays Rare Candy. It's a really, really good card. Okay, and then you play 2 Memory Berry as well. This is the other really essential part of the strategy. So when you have Memory Berry attached to Flygon, Flygon can use the attacks of the previous evolution. So you can use the Trapinch's attacks, the Inviting Trap, and the Sand Tomb. And that's really important for Sand Tomb, being able to Sand Tomb on a Flygon. When you have the Flygon level X to be able to mill, it just is your main strategy. That's the strategy of the deck, and that's why the deck is really good. Because as soon as you get that lock, unless they have a switch or a warp point or like a super scoop up or something, they're pretty much stuck in that lock. Okay, so you play 2 Switch as well. This is important for, switching your Palkia out of the active. If your opponent's trying to like bring something up, install it. If you're against another Flygon deck, Switch is really important. And sometimes you just like don't have the attacker that you want. Like sometimes you start a Baltoy and you don't want to invest that energy in it because you want to attach to something else. And having a Switch can be really clutch for sure. So you play 2 Night Maintenance as well. A really important card of the deck. So Night Maintenance search your discard pile for up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards, and then shuffle them into your deck. So really important for getting back your Flygon level X's. And again, the Pokemon lines are really thin, so getting that back is really, really vital. And you play 2 Night Maintenance and 2 Premier Ball just to get the Flygon lines and the Flygon level X's back. Because you play a 3-2-3, right? So you can't just lose 3 Flygons and then be like, well, that's it. I guess you just won the game because I don't really have real attackers anymore. But you just shuffle them back, and then you can attack with essentially 6 if you use them only on Pokemon. Or sometimes you can like just get away with putting a Trapinch, and a Flygon if you have enough Rare Candy left as well. Okay, so 2 Premier Ball. Premier Ball is super important to this deck as well. So search your deck or discard pile for a Pokemon level X, show it to your opponent, and then put it in your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. So it's super important to find the Flygon. Also really good to be able to find Palkia and Mewtwo. Being able to find Palkia is also really clutch. So Premier Ball, really good. It's also great because if your opponent is killing Flygons, if they're able to start taking out your Flygon level X, you can just have another Flygon, Premier Ball the level X, and then you're still milling them. Like you're still working on the main strategy of the deck. So still play 1 Luxury Ball. Luxury Ball is an awesome card. So search your deck for a Pokemon, excluding the Pokemon level X, and then show it to your opponent and put it in your hand. And then if you have a Luxury Ball in your discard, then you can't play Luxury Ball. That's the reason you only play 1. But you can just search for any Pokemon that's not level X, and you play so many Pokemon. So being able to search for, a Claydol or an Uxie or a Chatot or literally whatever you need, it's just such a good card. Okay, so getting into some of the supporters now. You play 4 Roseanne's Research. So Roseanne's Research is a staple in this format. Really solid card. Search your deck for up to 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy cards. Show them to your opponent and put them in your hand. So it's great to be able to find your mix of basic energy. You play it like a 3-3-2 basic energy, so it's really important to be able to search them, and Roseanne's just lets you do that. And then finding basic Pokemon as well, like as long as you are able to find like a Baltoy soon enough, and you can get a Claydol going, then your deck is essentially working at that point. So it's really important to find basics as well because you are an evolution deck. And because you're an evolution deck, you're going to play even more Pokemon Search. So we're playing 4 Bebe Search as well. Again, really staple, just important to be able to search your Pokemon. So Bebe Search can find any Pokemon. If you put a card back, and then you can just search for a Pokemon card and reveal it. So it can find your level X's or the non-level X's. So just really clutch to be able to, you know, go Roseanne's for a Baltoy and an Energy, get my attach out for the turn. And then Bebe Search the next turn for a Claydol. And then all of a sudden I'm set up and I'm ready to roll. You do play 2 Cynthia's Feelings as well. So Cynthia's Feelings is a pretty good card. Shuffle your deck and then draw 4 cards. If one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's next turn, last turn, draw 4 more cards. So you shuffle draw 8 if you're knocked out. And you do get knocked out a fair amount. So being able to hit those big draws where you're like, well, I don't like... You have a Flygon level X active, let's say, and like a Trapinch on the bench and a Claydol or something. And you're like, okay, well, if I get knocked out here, I'm going to need to hit Candy, Flygon, and maybe a Memory Berry or maybe an Energy. Really depends on what the board is. But when you're able to go Cynthia's Feelings, I just got knocked out. I don't really have anything. Okay, I hit the Candy Flygon, and now I'm going to play some more cards and then Claydol again. And then, oh, sweet, I found a Premier Ball. I got the level X, and now I'm back in business. You know, it lets you hit those big turns where you're able to hit every single piece of your combo so that you can just go back to locking again. Okay, so getting into the energy, you play 4 Call Energy, really solid card. So Call, if it's attached to your active Pokemon, you can activate Call, your turn ends, but you can search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and then put them onto your bench. So this is great because they're already in play that turn, which means next turn you're just straight able to evolve them. So being able to call to find a Baltoy or to find Trapinch or to find really anything that you need, Palkia, whatever, it's just really important in the early game, and it really helps smooth over the deck because you can just find basic Pokemon a lot. So you also play 3 Fighting. The 3 Fighting is so that you have free retreat on the Claydol, but it's also so you can Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb's pretty important. And then, yeah, free retreat on your Claydols is pretty big as well. So it's a big reason that you play 3 of those. Then you do play 3 Psychic Energy as well, because you do play a ton of Psychic attackers, and having free retreat on those guys is pretty good as well. And then also, like I said, you could attack with Nidoqueen, and there are some niche uses where you can attack with Uxie and Azelf as well, where it's good. Oh, and Mewtwo as well. So there are some uses for Psychic that are pretty important. And then you play 2 Water, not because you attack with Palkia, just because you need to find that water to attach to Flygon. And then as soon as it's attached, your Palkia has free retreat, and you can start restructuring anything consistently, which is really solid. Okay, well, this has been Flygon Lock from 2009. Sebastian Crema. His modified list is pretty much his list, but we just changed out some cards for the Dusknoir line. The Bubble Coat and whatever else. I don't know. I'll flash it. I don't remember what it is. The second card, whatever that card is. We said, screw that card. We just put in the Dusknoir because Dusknoir's really good. Yeah, so if you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. But thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.